Today, we are going to go over a very important topic, and this is to show how current events are lining up with prophecy so profoundly that we know we must sound the alarm and get ready to move when God so orders us to. We will be showing excerpts of the great nations of the earth that are to be involved in the biblically predicted conflict, in order to show the verity and validity of the Bible's prophecies. Today is Sabbath, October 4th, 2025, and this is the Gigantic War Timeline Study. So in this study, we will go briefly over Zephaniah 2, which shows the cause of the next world war. Then we will take a look at Zechariah 14 and clear up some questions as to the time those prophecies are fulfilled. We will look at some current events and see what the U.S. has been doing in relation to other countries and superpowers, and whether or not a coalition has been formed. We will briefly touch on the King of the North, and we will look at what happens after Assyria, we know that's the Protestant nations, is defeated, and how God clears the lands from them and the victors, who will be the Russian and Arab states and their allies. But first, we will look at Israel's world war. When looking at this last great conflict and world war, we must look at what the Bible says is the cause of it. And this is shown in Zephaniah 2, which some of you are familiar with from our other studies. For the sake of those who are unaware of this prophecy, we will briefly touch on it. But first, let me say that the total picture of this last war is found in the following references: Zephaniah 2, Zechariah 14, and Nahum 1, 2, and 3. And also there's some commentary in Isaiah, which we will read later on in the study. Zephaniah 2 tells us the cause of the last world war. It starts because the gathering of a nation that is not desired. Beginning in the late 1800s, and especially after World War II, the Jews from the two-tribe kingdom of Judah started to gather in the Holy Land because of some resolutions the British Empire made. Now, the British Empire controlled the region at that time. Notice in verse 1, God is not saying that a people is gathering, but a nation. Let's read it.
Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you.
And that's exactly what the Jews did. They sought nationhood from the very first and became the state of Israel officially in 1948.
Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Cherethites. The word of the Lord is against you. O Canaan, the land of the Philistines, I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant.
The conflict is there because the region was occupied by a people already called the Palestinians. The entire Holy Land region was called Palestine at that time. Eventually, Israeli settlers began to take more and more of the territory of the Palestinians. Now, if we go back to the King of the North study in Daniel 11, which is a very good and comprehensive study through the annals of history, the rise and fall of kingdoms from the time of Grecia all the way to the future when the king of the north comes to his end and he plants his tabernacles, or a branch of his tabernacles between the two seas, which encompasses the Holy Land and Sinai. If we look at that, we know that the Ottoman Empire took control of the Holy Land region from Rome and ruled it for hundreds of years. Okay, then after World War I, Britain takes over the region. They defeat the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Sultanate is dissolved. Then after World War II, the displaced Jews needed somewhere to go, and they start to migrate in the thousands back to the Holy Land. As you can see on the map, how the territory occupied by the Palestinians has shrunk exponentially. And that is why in the Bible, the state of Israel is called the nation not desired. So here we can see, if we look at the map to the very left, that this is the territories under the Ottoman Empire. And then we go to the time of World War I, from 1918 to 1946, we can see that this region was simply called Palestine, okay? And then about 1947, the UN comes up with a plan, along with the British, to make a two-state solution. So we have Jewish Palestine and Arab Palestine. Now, at this time, if you were a Jewish person in this territory, you were actually called a Palestinian. You were just a Jewish Palestinian, okay? But that changed throughout time. In 1948, they had the Arab-Israeli War, and Jordan occupied the West Bank. As you can see, that became the country of Jordan. Then in 1967, they had the Six-Day War, and Israel went ahead and went into that occupied territory where Jordan was and claimed some of it back. Israel claimed territory from Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, gaining the Sinai Peninsula, the West Bank, and Golan Heights. Now, in 1979, the Yom Kippur War brought to fruition the Camp David Accords, where the U.S. was involved in trying to bring peace to the region. And so they were somewhat successful, and they also gave this little strip, Gaza, to the Palestinians. They also negotiated to give Egypt back the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, and so now what we're looking at is this dark green region is where the Palestinians have been relegated to now. So it's this little strip in Gaza, and then there is some scattered Muslim neighborhoods or quarters, regions in Jerusalem and other places. So none of the Arab states really appreciated this migration, and there has been a long history of skirmishes and wars over this region between the Israelis and the Arab states. So let's go back to the three classes to review. They are the nation not desired here in the middle. Okay. Nation not desired, the state of Israel. There is the meek of the earth, God's people, Abraham's seed scattered throughout the nations, who are Christian Jews, who not only have the ancestry, but also the present truth. And remember, we have those that are going to be grafted in under the new covenant, right? The Gentiles are going to be grafted in as well to receive the blessing of Abraham. And then we have the Arab Muslim states that are laying claim to the land too. Zephaniah also deals with Assyria later on in the chapter and its fate, which we will touch on. So we're going to skip over to Nahum, because Nahum actually gives more detail on Assyria, antitypical Assyria and Nineveh. And we know that there's an antitypical Assyria and Nineveh because there are prophecies that have not been fulfilled that are for our time. Just like we can see in Revelation 17 that there's an antitypical Babylon. We as Adventists know this. There's also an antitypical Assyria, which represents the Protestant nations, and an antitypical Nineveh, which represents the head of the Protestant nations, which would be the United States of America. So we went over the first part of Zephaniah, and we have gone through Zechariah 14. We know that this war between Israel and Gaza can be the start of it because Gaza has truly been forsaken as a partial fulfillment of the prophecy in Zephaniah 2. But the part we haven't seen yet is that all nations haven't gathered. We haven't seen the Lord go forth and fight against those nations in verse 3. And we haven't seen a very great valley made between the Mount of Olives in verse 4. And we haven't seen the saints flee to this valley in verse 5 because we are not yet in the kingdom. But sometime after the nations are gathering to battle, the Lord in verse 3 will fight against those nations. This is the fate of Assyria, which is found in Nahum. Zechariah 14 tells about this conflict, and every verse gives some information, but there's also information that is missing that will be revealed in Nahum. Okay? So if we read the first part of Zechariah 14, it says,
Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake, in the days of Uzziah king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. And it shall come to pass in that day, that the light shall not be clear, nor dark.
Now we're going to break down every verse of this. Sometime after the nations are gathering to battle, the Lord in verse 3 will fight against those nations. This is the fate of Assyria and Nineveh, which is found in Nahum. We'll come back to these verses, but first let's go through the order as it happens. So we must deal with Assyria first. Now, in view of the truth of we are living in such a period described by Nahum, together with the fact that preparations for Nahum's war are made during a time of such lightning-like travel, the evidence clearly stands out. Nahum's prophecy is to meet its fulfillment in our day, and that the Assyria here in prophecy, therefore, is not ancient Assyria, but another widespread power that exists in the time of the end. Daniel 12, 9 and 10. The time in which its yoke is removed from God's people. So the Bible is saying that the Assyrian yoke, the Bible calls Jacob God's people. He calls them Jacob, and we know it's a type. It's a type that's used throughout the major and minor prophets and even in the New Testament. And he says Assyria's yoke will be removed from God's people. The reason we are represented as Jacob is because we have not been purified yet. God has not taken out that heart of stone and given us a heart of flesh to keep us from sinning. We have not been sealed, okay? So in the time of Assyria, Assyria's yoke is removed from God's people. Moreover, since this antitypical Assyria's falls liberates God's people, and since from then on the wicked no longer pass through their midst, the time and events are solidly clinched. All the predictions come to pass in the time of the purification of the church and the judgment day of the living, during the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now, we had talked in our last study extensively about the sanctuary and how when Christ is going through all the cases of the dead, he starts with Adam. So Christ is making his way down through the investigative judgment, and he's opening up the book of life, and he sees who's in it. Anybody who has claimed faith in a coming Redeemer or claimed faith in Christ, has given their life to Christ, is written in the book of life. And then, of course, we have the book that all our deeds are written in. So if there are sins that are unconfessed, then we know that our names would be blotted out of the book of life. That is the judgment that is currently going on that started in 1844. And we do have an excellent video on that. Okay, but what happens when it comes to the judgment of the living? The judgment of the living cannot simply just be a bookwork. Actually, when the judgment of the living comes, the sanctuary being cleansed in heaven, also an event happens in earth to cleanse the earthly sanctuary, that is God's people on earth. And it starts with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And that's why we have the separation of the wheat and the tares. When the judgment passes over to those living, it has to happen. It's part of the investigative judgment, and that's what and just as they went through the dead with accuracy, they're going to go through the living. Anyone who is practicing sin and has not been living up to what they know is supposed to be all the light that God has revealed to us in the church is going to be separated. And what happens? The tares are gathered into bundles to be burned, but the wheat is gathered into the barn, which is the kingdom. So a little while ago, we had a big event that took place around the world where people were preparing for a rapture, and they believed that they were going to be raptured out of this wicked earth and taken to heaven. So we had some people that did, the most extreme things and sold their houses and stuff. And we had big groups around the world waiting for the Savior to rapture them. Well, of course, it didn't happen, because this rapture that they're talking about, which is in the parables, is actually a rapture of the wicked. It's a rapture of Ezekiel 9. So, getting back to Nahum.
He that dasheth in pieces is come up before thy face. Keep the munition, watch the way, make thy loins strong, fortify thy power mightily.
It is plain to see that the one who dasheth in pieces and who comes before Assyria's face is the one who forces Assyria to prepare. to militarize herself mightily.
En route to proving grounds for final tests before being shipped overseas, the United States Army's new 240mm howitzers roll into position. Each unit weighs 91,000 pounds. The powerful mobile field guns hurl 360-pound shells a distance of more than 15 miles. And the command is, fire!
Her forced military preparations, agitated by him who dashes in pieces, starts Assyria on her downfall. Now, to find out what happens to the one who dashes in pieces, he who compels Assyria to prepare mightily, we shall read Nahum 2:5.
He shall recount his worthies. They shall stumble in their walk. They shall make haste to the wall thereof, and the defense shall be prepared.
His worthies, his mighty generals, stumble in their walk. That is, they make a mistake as they march on in the hope of victory. In view of their disastrous blunder, and in view of the fact that he that dasheth in pieces is mentioned no more in Nahum's book, it is evident that by his stumbling he loses the war.
Mid-April. With the Red Army no more than 100 kilometers from Berlin, the remnants of the German divisions, around 500,000 men and 900 tanks, were retreating before the Russian steamroller. Across 200 kilometers, the front was yielding. The Reich was on its knees, and the Allied bombers were battering Berlin.
Every 10 days brought a daytime raid by the Americans, but every night harassment raids by the British mosquitoes. This meant the people were constantly under staircases and in cellars, busy taking refuge in the shelters, Hitler like the other 3 million Berliners. So everyone was exhausted. In fact, that's why the British stepped up the harassment raids. And at one point, the pressure of the bombing became so great that he decided to move out. So he moved into the bunker for good.
For the desperate Germans, the wait for the final act of the tragedy seemed interminable. The radio aired the last live broadcast of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, the finale of Richard Wagner's The Twilight of the Gods.
Nevertheless, according to the verses that follow in Nahum's chapter, the fall of Assyria is certain. The question then arises, if Assyria is to fall, and if the one that starts the war, the he that dashes in pieces, is himself to lose out first, then who at the hands is Assyria to fall? For the answer, let us turn to Isaiah 31, where this same Assyria is again brought to view. But first, before we do that, the reason why I have this blue line right here is because if you look at Nahum, these first 5 verses have been fulfilled, okay? We can look at verse 4, it says,
The chariots shall rage in the streets. They shall jostle one against another in the broad ways. They shall seem like torches. They shall run like the lightnings.
That tells us that this conflict is in the last days where there's modern technology and cars and planes and all that. Again, it says it in verse 3.
The shield of his mighty men is made red. The valiant men are in scarlet. The chariots shall be with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the fir trees shall be terribly shaken.
So it's definitely a war that happens in modern times. And so we apply this to World War II, where Hitler made a mistake and he opened up additional fronts despite his onslaught of London. London was about to fall, but he opened up additional fronts. He went into Russia, North Africa, and that was his stumble. And then the Allies made haste to prepare. The defense was prepared. But the part of Nahum chapter 2 that has not yet been fulfilled is verse 6 through 13.
The gates of the rivers shall be opened, and the palace shall be dissolved, and Huzzab shall be led away captive. She shall be brought up, and her maids shall lead her as with the voice of doves, tabering upon their breasts.
And here's the United States.
But Nineveh is of old like a pool of water, yet they shall flee away. Stand, stand, shall they cry, but none shall look back.
So this shows that Nineveh, the U.S., who is a fighting nation, a valiant and often cruel fighting nation, they are going to act differently in this war. Instead of fighting, they will be put on the run. And then verse 9 says,
Take ye the spoil of silver, take the spoil of gold, for there is none end of the store and glory out of all the pleasant furniture. She is empty and void and waste, and the heart melteth, and the knees smite together, and much pain is in all loins, and the faces of them all gather blackness. Where is the dwelling of the lions?
The leaders of the country.
And the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion, even the old lion, walked, and the lions whelp, and none made them afraid. The lion did tear in pieces enough for his whelps, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his holes with prey, and his dens with ravin. Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will burn her chariots in the smoke, and the sword shall devour thy young lions, and I will cut off thy prey from the earth, and the voice of thy messengers shall no more be heard.
So this whole verse from 6 to 13 is talking about Nineveh, the United States. And it's showing how God views the United States, that this is a nation that is extremely rich. And that when the lion strangles for his lionesses and filled his holes with prey and filled it with ravin, I mean, they've taken so many resources and riches around the world. And God is saying, I'm against you, okay? Because their cup of iniquity as a nation is going to rise up to the point where his indignation takes place of his mercy. Okay, going back to what we were talking about with Nahum, Isaiah 31, 6 through 8. Turn ye unto him, from whom the children of Israel have deeply revolted. For in that day every man shall cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which your own hands have made unto you for a sin. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword, not of a mean man, shall devour him. But he shall flee from the Lord, and his young men shall be discomfited. Now, I had to look up the word discomfited, and I want to read you the definition because it's not a common word, and I just didn't know what it meant. Discomfited means to put someone in a state of perplexity and embarrassment. That's one definition. Number 2 is to frustrate the plans of, to thwart. That's another definition. And then the third definition says to defeat in battle. So that's what discomfited means. So the young man, that means the Protestant nations, which can be the United States, Canada, Great Britain, and maybe a few others, Norway, but basically the English-speaking Protestant nations. They're the ones that are going to fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword not of a mean man shall devour him. Okay, so we're going to find out what this sword is that devours the Assyrian. And remember, America is included in this because Nineveh is the capital city of Assyria. Assyria is to fall and to be devoured, and not by the sword of a mean man, not by him who dashes in pieces either. So here we learn the fate of Assyria, how he is defeated. He is not defeated by he that dasheth in pieces. He is not defeated by the sword of a mean man. Now the fact that God's people are admonished to turn unto him, against whom ancient Israel revolted, shows again that inspiration is speaking to antitypical Israel, to modern Israel, to God's people in the Christian era. And who is that? Well, Ellen White called the Seventh-day Adventist Church modern Israel. And not only that, we know that the 144,000 are sealed from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That was her very first vision. And they will be the new leadership for the church. So that's who he's talking to. For in that day, every man shall cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which your own hands have made unto you for a sin. And he shall pass over to his stronghold for fear, and his princes shall be afraid of the ensign. That's the kingdom being set up. I've added that. Saith the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, and his furnace in Jerusalem. So obviously the prophet Isaiah is looking down the stream of time to a time of thorough reformation, a time in which only those who forsake every sin and embody truth and righteousness will be left in the church. None others will be found in the congregation of the Lord. Remember, that investigative judgment at one point has to come down to earth, and the separation of the wicked and righteous will then occur. Then Assyria shall fall, and thus her yoke be removed from the neck of God's people. The Assyrian is to fall because of his wickedness and because God's people return to them, because of a thorough revival and reformation. So when he passes over his strong foothold for fear, and his princes will be afraid of the ensign, all these calamities overtake Assyria as soon as God's people turn to them, as soon as they cast away their idols. Now, I read something for a reference from Ellen White that she wrote, as soon as the character of Christ is reproduced in his people, Christ will wrap up the work and come. Now, that doesn't mean he comes right away. There's some things that has to happen, right? There's a reason for the kingdom, and there's a place that we need to be gathering the heathens and the people from Babylon together, from the fallen churches. We need to gather them first, and they need to learn the ways of the Lord. What are the Lord's fire in Zion and his furnace in Jerusalem for? The answer we shall find in Malachi 3:1. So if we look back and we see Nahum 2, that kind of mirrors the judgment we see on Assyria and Nineveh in Zephaniah 2. That's just a footnote. The judgment that we see on Assyria and Nineveh in Nahum 2 also is referenced in Zephaniah 2 at the end of the chapter. But now let's read Malachi 3, verses 1 and 2. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me, and the Lord whom you seek, who shall come suddenly to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. So he says, behold, I will send my messenger, and the Lord whom ye seek will come suddenly to his temple. That is the judgment of the living opening up, because the Lord comes suddenly. Even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in, behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. The prophecy of Isaiah, along with the prophecy of Malachi, make the subject very simple. According to these prophecies, during the judgment of the living, and while the first fruits, the servants of God, the 144,000, stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion, the headquarters of the gospel shall be in Zion and Jerusalem. So let's look at this. In these chapters, two people are brought to view: the church and a nation comparable or comparable to ancient Assyria, to which the church is now under subjection. Remember, we outlined the way the Protestant Reformation traveled and actually came to America through the providence of God, through the English speaking people. And under the freedoms and the separation of church and state, which they developed under the Constitution of the United States, which is divinely inspired, by the way, God's church was able to flourish, and the Reformation continued until the Seventh-day Adventist Church was born. Now, it hasn't stopped. We will see that, there's a people that will become truly reformed, and we know that because when Christ comes to separate the wheat and the tares, he's going to take a people into the kingdom. But two people are brought to view: the church and a nation comparable to ancient Assyria, to which the church is under subjection. So we are now in America, and we're under subjection to its government and its laws. God's people, Judah, are asked to behold the messenger of God, who at the fulfillment of this prophecy and at a time broiling with war, brings them good tidings of the kingdom of peace. And so we do have good tidings studying this message of God's kingdom being established, and that we can be participants, inhabitants of this kingdom. Number 3, the prophecy is fulfilled in the day of unprecedented motorized vehicular traffic, the day when the chariots, automobiles, are with flaming torches and they jostle one another in the broad ways, unquestionably in our day. Now that's fulfilled. And in this day, he that dashes in pieces wars with the antitypical Assyria. He begins her downfall. Now, some have said, is this a partial fulfillment? Because remember, if we go back to that chapter in Nahum, we can see that verses 1 through 5 have a fulfillment, but some think that there may arise another he that dashes in pieces that may finish the job, because Assyria and Nineveh did not fall with World War II. Let's move on. On the march to victory, Assyria's enemy, he that dashes in pieces, makes a mistake and consequently falls, loses the war. That was, we could say, fulfilled by Hitler. Assyria, nonetheless, later falls too, but not by the sword of a mean man, and not by he that dashes in pieces. Number 8, the war, the fast rolling chariots, and a revival and reformation such as the world has never seen are the signposts of the fulfillment of Nahum's prophecy. That's fulfilled. We have right now the chariots that go very fast. When God's people cast aside all their idols, fully turn to them, then it is that Assyria falls. Then it is that the wicked are removed from the midst of the people of God. The Assyrian yoke is broken, and the servants of God, evidently the first fruits, the 144,000, stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. I'm going to show a video that I put together, and the reason why it's important for us to know what's going on and how prophecy is being fulfilled. And this is going to give you some updates on some current events. We are going to review in this short video 7 reasons why World War III will happen very soon if it hasn't already started.
Israel should make the Gaza Strip a parking lot by this time next week. Destroy the whole thing. So I hope Netanyahu's a leader and he just mows the whole thing down by this time next week.
Know this, that we're not only to stand with Israel because we stand with God, and Israel.
Say no to President Trump would be saying no to God.
Strike and
Say no to President Trump would be saying no to God.
strike and strike and strike and strike and strike until you have victory.
Meet Paula White-Cain, U.S. President Donald Trump's so-called faith advisor, a televangelist who sells blessings for cash, preaches Zionist dogma, and now heads the White House Faith Office. She consults Trump and rallies evangelicals for Israel. White-Cain and Trump's relationship goes back to 2002, when he spotted her on TV and brought her in as his spiritual guru. Since then, she's built mega churches, published books, and crafted an empire of religious spectacle. But for the Republican Party, she's more than a pastor. She's the bridge to millions of white evangelicals, the key to Trump's political power, wrapped in holy packaging. Her loyalty to Israel is just as loud.
We as Christians and believers know this, that we're not only to stand with Israel because we stand with God, and Israel is God's place.
She believes backing Israel is a biblical mandate, has posed for pictures at the Western Wall, and met with Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu for an interview. She's even bragged about advising Trump to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
80-something nations called saying, you're going to start World War III. And he looked at me, Paulo, what's the final weigh-in of people with faith? And I said, absolutely do it. It's right, both with history, it's right with God. 80-something nations called saying, you're going to start World War III. And he looked at me, Paulo, what's the final weigh-in of people with faith? And I said, absolutely do it. It's right, both with history, it's right with God.
I just want to say this to our Christian friends, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
We will always stand with Israel first and foremost, so everybody understands that very clearly.
For as long as I have the privilege of serving in the Senate from New York, I will unflinchingly, unstintingly, and with all of my strength be Shomer Yisrael, a guardian of Israel.
Together, let's defend the shared values that already make America and Israel great.
Friends who share my strong commitment to make sure that the bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable today, unbreakable tomorrow, unbreakable forever. Our alliance is based on shared interests and shared values. Those who threaten Israel threaten us. Israel has always faced these threats on the front lines, and I will bring to the White House an unshakable commitment to Israel's security.
There's nobody on this stage that's more pro-Israel than I am.
When I was a young senator, I say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
The people of Israel and the Jews around the world, we stand with you. We stand with Israel. Be strong and be brave.
Zionist Israel in Washington, D.C. AIPAC. If you haven't heard about them, you've been on Mars. AIPAC spends $2 to $3 million a year lobbying Congress on behalf of Israel and promoting Zionist causes. And it frequently writes legislation for Congress. The American Israel Education Foundation spends millions of dollars annually on paid trips to Israel for members of Congress. The Anti-Defamation League, ADL. The International Fellowship of Christian and Jews. The Central Fund of Israel. Christians United for Israel. Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Simon Wiesenthal Center. Israel Project. Friends of Israeli Defense Forces. Women's Zionist Organizations of America. The Jewish Agency for Israel. American Friends of Likud. American Israel Cooperative Enterprise. The Israel Allies Foundation. The Jewish Policy Center. Leon and Harry Helmsley Charitable Trust. Jewish Council for Public Affairs. Zionist Organization of America. World Jewish Congress, Republican Jewish Coalition, National Jewish Democratic Council, Center for Security Policy, Israeli American Council, etc., 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 etc. These are all lobbying groups for Zionist Israel in Washington, D.C.
Now, for those of you who are just listening, this is going to tell you U.S. aid to Israel over the years. John F. Kennedy, $60 million. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1963 to 1969, $150 million. Richard Nixon, $1.5 billion. Gerald Ford, $1.8 million. Jimmy Carter, $4.9 billion. Ronald Reagan, $13 billion. George W. Bush, $3 billion. Bill Clinton, $21 billion. George W. Bush, the second one, $30 billion. Barack Obama, $38 billion. Donald Trump, his first presidency, $38 billion. Joe Biden, $58 billion. Donald Trump, so far in 2025, has sent $12 billion U.S. aid to Israel. Totals are $200 billion plus in aid.
With Egypt. Let me explain something about what is called the Jewish lobby in this country. Their belief is that being for Israel first, that does not mean you're putting America second. An American president, however, has to approach it in a different way, in my opinion. He's got always to think first of what is best for America. An American president must make a decision that does not, in effect, give the Israelis a blank check. And one example of that is a decision that I made. I decided early on in our administration that we were going to seek good relations with Egypt and others of Israel's neighbors. Many of my Israeli friends didn't like that because they wanted a special relationship with Israel and Israel only.
How does this small country exert such pressure on the United States? How do they?
Because the Israel
Congress?
lobby is quite wealthy and because it bought most of our elected officials. Biden received more money from AIPAC than any other U.S. senator. He holds the record. And he hasn't been in the Senate. He wasn't in the Senate for what, 10 years, 12? I don't know how long it's been. And if you stand up to them, like Jamal Bowman, they spent $11 million to get him ousted from his House seat. That's a long track record. I mean, they pushed out Fulbright. Fulbright held hearings about AIPAC raising money as a nonprofit. And I can't remember the exact details, but they mounted a fierce campaign to push Fulbright out of the Senate, and they succeeded. So it's not new. To challenge the Israel lobby, given the deep pockets of the Israel lobby, is, they will punish you. You will get pushed out, and it's money.
Has health care. Nobody goes bankrupt because they have cancer. But in the United States, we don't, yet we send them aid. How does this serve the United States of America?
The endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States.
Giving money to Israel for endless wars, years and years, billions and billions and billions of dollars. This doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. Why are we doing that?
I want to hear why that is a good use. We have people sleeping out on the streets of America 2 blocks from the nation's capital. You tell me why spending billions of dollars to support Netanyahu's war and starving children is a good idea. I'd love to hear it.
Look, the United States and Israel are 2 separate countries, and they often have different interests. The reason the lobby works so hard is because Israel's interests conflict with America's interests, and the lobby wants to go to great lengths to make sure that Israel's interests prevail in that competition.
You see, the Bible makes a distinction, Mr. President, between two groups of Jews. One is called the synagogue of Satan. There's two different kinds. There are those people in the latter days is called the remnant of God's people, which will be Jewish people. And then there's the synagogue of Satan, and nearly all of your religious deceptions in the latter days, what the Bible speaks latter days to be about here, what they call the synagogue of Satan. In other words, they are energized by a supernatural power called the devil. This is what the Bible teaches. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, this is the biblical teaching. This is what I believe. And I believe that they have a strange brilliance about them. They're smart, and they are energized, in my judgment, by a supernatural power. Also, they're smart. And you see, of course, Hitler didn't. They had a stranglehold on Germany, on the banking of Germany, on everything in Germany. And they had the whole thing, you see. And if he went about it wrong. But this stranglehold has got to be broken, or this country is going to go down the drain. Yes, sir. I can't ever say it, but I believe it. Nobody. But like the second time, we might be able to do something.
But I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
How do you mean pushing around?
Well, pressuring. They have many means at their disposal. They are putting up pressure on many, many people. And at the end, I don't think that it will even help Israel.
Why, if this is true, why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
Banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make...
Not entirely, but I think even...
If you're still supporting Israel in the year 2025, there's something seriously wrong with you as a person. You do not have a normal, healthy sense of empathy and morality. It's 2025. Israeli soldiers are telling the Israeli press that they're being ordered to massacre starving children trying to obtain food from aid centers. People by the thousands are leaving evangelical churches. More than any time in our nation's history. And a lot of it, if not most of it, has to do with they are sick and tired of their evangelical pastors and churches supporting genocide against the Palestinian people. They're sick of it. Jesus said the peacemakers are blessed. Not the people who support Israel. That's not what Jesus said. Did he? I dare you to find one verse of scripture where Jesus said, bless Israel and you'll be blessed. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. There's a lot of verses that repeat this. Romans 14:19. Follow after the things which make for peace. 1 Corinthians 7:15. God hath called us to peace. God has called us to peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. God is the author of peace. 2 Corinthians 13:11. Live in peace. Are you living in peace? Colossians 3:15. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Peace not bitterness, not anger, not resentment, not hatred, not prejudice, not bigotry, not selfishness. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Hebrews 12:14. Follow peace with all men. How many of you have seen the videos of the atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank that our taxpayer dollars are financing?
Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else, you start slightly criticizing Israel. We got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the U.S. government.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. There's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can put them in jail, we can make their lives miserable, we can cut off their funding.
This guy thinks that simply criticizing how Israel is prosecuting the war is already anti-Semitic. And he wants to throw you in prison for it.
Yeah.
In prison for it.
And by the way, that was an answer to a question about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So we're not talking about student visas anymore.
Oh my God.
Now we're talking about core American podcasters, people in media on the right and the left.
God will bless Israel or God won't bless you. Now here's the thing. The modern day nation of Israel is not a lucky rabbit's foot. As long as you rub it, God will be good to you. It doesn't work that way. But not only that, the Bible simply does not say that at all. The Bible does not say anywhere in the Bible to bless Israel, yet especially the modern day nation of Israel. We had some visitors just last week that were down here for vacation, and that was one of their concerns, that the church that they're in is teaching political Zionism. And they're telling Christians that we have to support war in Iran, and they're teaching hatred as a commandment of man. Jesus said, blessed be the peacemakers. God is not a racist, and God doesn't approve of racism. This is so important, and many Christians have bought into this, and they want to hate every Arab or Palestinian because they believe they're going to be blessed being Israel's buddy, and any enemy of Israel must be my enemy. Folks, this is not in the Word of God. And frankly, it's shameful. Jesus said, blessed be the...
I'll double down what Anna said. If any harm comes to us, it was definitely Israel. Not one person from mainstream media will cover this. Not one government official will care. If you're threatening murder Christians or Muslims or anyone else in this country, they don't care.
No, they don't.
They don't. But if you insult someone who's pro-Israeli,
I'm not suicidal, and if anything happens to me, it's not an accident.
If any harm comes to us, it was definitely Israel.
I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American. I'm not an Israeli. There's no law on the books that indicates that I have to support Israel in any way, shape, or form. Over the weekend, I noticed that I have become a target of one of these pro-Israeli groups. It's a shadowy group, doesn't disclose who it's funded by. It's called Canary Mission.
So now there's a pro-Israel group inside America that is encouraging death threats against Americans. Well, you came to the wrong place, brothers and sisters.
If you are on the left, you are not my enemy.
It is with pride that we announced our next guest. Thank you, Zech, for coming on.
No problem, Tucker. Thanks for having me on. I think it's important that we have a moment like this where we try to bring the country together.
Amen. I so strongly agree.
Wake up, because I am telling you this is not a battle between left and right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Thank you.
We have to now meet in the middle.
Do you think that America should just cut ties with Israel altogether?
What's your definition of cut ties?
Like stop funding them, stop being their military arm?
Yes,
okay,
I'm on
great.
record saying.
Okay.
What you're doing here is so important, Congresswoman Green, so please thank you, because I know that you now have a target on your back, and I'm sure you're being called all sorts of ridiculous names because you want to, prioritize the American people.
AIPAC needs to register under FARA. I've openly demanded that, and if we had a Department of Justice that was doing its job, they would be investigating AIPAC. But I think the American people see through it, and the tide is rapidly changing, and I tell you, one of the most delightful experiences I've had since I've been in Washington is that I'm finding common ground with people on the left and the right that really want to focus in on America. And I think that's the best thing that can happen. And that's why I'm delighted to have conversations with the two of you. And I look forward to finding more common ground, because I think that could be the best thing that could happen for all of us.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, we appreciate you coming on the Outdoors.
Thank you.
Please shut up. My late father
My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians, not for what's inside.
What we're seeing is a group of Palestinian men desperately trying to dig children out of rubble caused by a rocket or a bomb. The children are obviously in distress. And also, we have a video of starving children.
Children with pre-existing conditions waste away quickly because high-calorie foods and nutritional supplements have run out. Sama Matar's sons, Yusuf and Amir, have cerebral palsy and malnutrition.
She says before the war, their health was excellent. They were provided with special meals, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. I used to keep chicken soup for them in the freezer, as well as biscuits and cakes. Now all these things are unavailable. Their health has deteriorated severely and they are suffering from severe malnutrition. I cannot meet any of their needs. Their health is constantly deteriorating.
Ominia Mahra's children, Odeh and Mohammed, suffer from a genetic nerve disorder. They also have malnutrition.
They have a constant need for formula, a constant need for diaper changes, and constant diarrhea. They get sick and don't sleep at night, and they need sedatives, none of which are available to them. They cry constantly around the clock.
Over the past month, 28 children have died of malnutrition-related causes, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, though it's not known how many have had other conditions. Israel denies a famine is taking place or that children are starving. It says it has supplied enough food throughout the war and accuses Hamas of causing shortages by stealing aid and trying to control food distribution. Humanitarian groups deny that significant diversion of food takes place. Throughout nearly 22 months of war, the number of aid trucks has been far short of the roughly 500 a day the UN says is needed.
Here is the list. These are the names of children published in the Washington Post today that have been killed by the Israeli military in Gaza. The United Nations reports that more than 18,000 children have been killed since this war began. And I should mention that more than 12,000 of these children were under the age of 12. And more than 3,000 children in Gaza have had one or more limbs amputated. These are emaciated children, their bodies in some cases barely more than skeletons. The American people are seeing miles and miles of rubble where cities and towns once stood. They're seeing innocent people being shot down while they wait online to get food while they are starving. Over 1,000 people have been killed waiting online to get food because they are starving. Despite these war crimes carried out daily and in plain view, the United States has provided more than $22 billion for Israel's military operations since this war began. $22 billion. One estimate based on Brown University research calculates that the United States has paid for 70% of the Gaza war. In other words, American taxpayer dollars are being used to starve children, bomb schools, kill civilians.
17-year-old Jamal Abdul Luli was shot at the GHF aid point in Rafah. Emotional scenes unfolded as his family said their final goodbyes. He went to get food so we don't die from hunger. They've created a trap to kill them. They say come get aid, but they're lying. They chose young boys and shoot them and kill them. Nothing took him there except hunger, oh God. Jamal's grandfather calls for people to avoid U.S. Israeli food sites. He says, I'm against American aid. We don't want it. We ask all Palestinians to avoid going to the American aid sites. They set them up as battlegrounds and say they are safe, but they are not safe. They trap and kill people in it. Every day we pray for 30 or 40 martyrs are killed. Nahid al-Mahadadan was killed on his way to receive aid. He was 16 years old. His mother mourned her only son. She says, I wish you had stayed at home, oh God, oh God. All thanks to God, oh God. May God grant your father patience. You're all he had. You were his backbone, his support. Who's going to care for him now? Who? Please get up. Please don't joke with me. Please be alive. The UN has called the GHF distribution points death traps. Over 740 Palestinians were killed trying to seek aid from the Gaza humanitarian, and more than 4,800 others were injured since it started operating in May. Now, what we are seeing in America is that social media is going to be controlled. Our phones are going to be surveilled. And they're going to use AI to do this, and it's just going to be so vast and so far-reaching that it's going to make the Patriot Act look like child's play. And everything that we do is going to be monitored. Why? Because anyone that is espousing anti-MAGA worldviews, anti-Christian, anti-Semitic especially, is going to be labeled as domestic terrorists. And this administration is directing the National Joint Terrorism Task Force, Department of Justice, and Treasury to investigate and prosecute individuals, nonprofits, funders, and freeze assets, also corporations. So what we've been seeing with universities like Harvard that are being required to capitulate and make their students take anti-Semitism educational courses. This all has to do directly with the lobby that is incessantly happening in Washington, D.C. and the pro-Israel ideology that is not necessarily built on real biblical doctrine, okay? It's not founded on real biblical doctrine. It's actually a misapplication of the scripture. And we have other videos talking about this, about how the blessing continued with the Christian Jews, not the Jews that rejected Jesus, the Christian Jews who intermingled with the Gentiles. And that's why they were to be blessed. That's why Abraham's seed was going to be as the sand of the sea, because those Jews assimilated into the Gentile nations and spread the gospel, Christianity. So we cannot look to Jews who do not believe in Christ, the cornerstone of the gospel, to lead us. It is a betrayal to uphold those who think that Jesus is someone to spit on, or think that he's boiling in a pot of dung, or call him a son of a blank, and all these terrible heretical things to our faith. And if they had their way, they would burn down every Christian church as they are doing now currently.
The values of the Talmud.
Europe does not have the values of the Talmud. This is what the Talmud says. Gittin 57a. Jesus is in hell being boiled in a pot of poop. Yes, it actually says this. Go ahead and look it up. Shabbath 116a. Jews must destroy the books of the Christians, meaning the Bible, to destroy the Bible. Yalka 245c says that the extermination of the Christians is a necessary sacrifice. Now imagine if Christians said all the same things about the Jews. And you're telling me that Europe has the values of the Talmud? No, it will never will. And remember what the Talmudic Bolsheviks did to the Christians. Between 40 to 60 million Christians were put in concentration camps and killed in the gulags. Talmudic Jewish supremacist Bolsheviks did that. Ursula is a traitor to Christianity. She is a traitor to Europe. And I am disgusted, but very shocked that she would even say something like that. We need to throw all the Zionists, not just out of Europe, but out of the Middle East and also America. This is getting too absurd.
So what is the point of all this, saints? Satan is trying to make it illegal for us to teach the truth about the establishment of the latter-day kingdom. And this is why he is making all these oppressive laws in the United States right now. And also why he has the Jewish lobby, which Billy Graham called the synagogue of Satan, working so hard to effect and influence American freedoms, freedom of speech, universities, social media, news, all that.
American citizen with a phone, Israel has all of your data thanks to Trump's new bill. Trump is using Palantir, an Israeli AI database, to collect information on U.S. citizens on their cell phone. And the man in charge of Palantir, an Israeli citizen who is best friends with Israel's president. Here they two are right here. Now Palantir, who has ties with the Israeli government, now has full control over your phone. They're giving this information over to the U.S. government and probably Israel. And if you're wondering, yes, this is in effect. Make sure to follow me to know the truth and comment what you're gonna do. If you're
going on right now is class TikTok number one, and I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy, he's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now.
Please, order in the hall. 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 Please, order in the hall.
There is no Palestinian state under international law to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France. If you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you. We should crush your economy.
Canada recognizes the state of Palestine.
I stand before you today beneath the emblem of the United Nations to confirm the historic decision of the British government to recognize the state of Palestine.
Je déclare que la France reconnaît aujourd'hui l'État de Palestine.
Australia recognized the state of Palestine.
Portugal formally recognized the state of Palestine as a sovereign state with full rights. Belgium announces the recognition of the state of Palestine.
Ireland, Norway and Spain are announcing that we recognise the state of Palestine.
The government has decided that Norway wants to officially recognize the state of Palestine.
Del sentir mayoritario del pueblo español, España aprobará en su Consejo de Ministros el reconocimiento al Estado de Palestina.
You know what message the leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians? It's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. You know what message the leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians? It's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off.
What it is. This is a joke by the Israelis. Get rid of all you Americans. You're all part of the land of Edom. They consider Donald Trump their Mashiach. I don't know if you know this. Do you know that they gave Donald Trump the silver crown of the Torah recently, which is to be put on the head of the Messiah? You know this? What was it? 163 Orthodox rabbis. Oh, wow. Came together at Trump's golf course and handed him the silver crown. Do you know any of that? Nope. They gave him a menorah about 2 weeks ago, and on the bottom, the inscription says the Prince of Peace, an utterance out of the prophet Isaiah for the Mashiach, the Messiah. Do you know that happened? So you guys have no idea that they, in Israel, the Knesset, and in the Sanhedrin, have proclaimed Donald Trump the Messiah. Okay. You know none of this. They gave Trump the silver crown of the Torah. Got that? That's the silver crown of Jerusalem. This is to be given to the Messiah and the Messiah only. And 163 Orthodox Jewish rabbis gave Donald Trump the silver crown of the Torah. I worked 4 years on Trump's campaign team. These guys are, this is the inscription, which you can't read, but you can read it here. They're calling him the Prince of Peace. This is an utterance out of the prophet Isaiah. Donald Trump is considered the Mashiach of Israel, the Messiah, according to these rabbis who run your country. The whole COVID agenda was done by Zionist Jews, and they want all you people dead here in the land of Edom. They consider Donald Trump the head of Edom. They're going to kill you people off with this injection. You're considered Amalek, and they want all you people dead. My Instagram is Trump_played_you. Trump played you.
Breaking, Vladimir Putin just answered Trump's submarine threat by calling in China. Russia and China launched joint military drills in the Sea of Japan, simulated combat operations, live fire exercises, and one clear message: we're watching you too. It started with a digital clash. Trump publicly confirmed that 2 U.S. Navy nuclear submarines are moving closer to Russia. That statement followed an online spat with former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who warned the U.S. could face direct consequences. Now Moscow and Beijing are pushing back. Their joint drills showcased aircraft, destroyers, and coordinated missile tracking. A quiet but strategic show of force. Military analysts say this is more than theater, it's a signal. If the U.S. escalates, Russia won't stand alone. Trump's team says the subs are for deterrence, but critics warn this could provoke a dangerous response. So here's the question: are we watching a power display or the early moves of something far more serious?
For Israel, North Korea is now saying if they do not stop the war in Gaza, they will intervene and save the Palestinians. Kim Jong-un was making an address to his assembly recently whenever he said that the support for Iran and the Palestinians will never waver, and that Israel is a, quote, cancer-like entity. This is bad news for Breaking news, Germany has turned on Israel. Big news today is the Germans announced they are no longer supporting Israel and will instead work towards a Palestinian state, as well as stopping all arms deliveries to Israel and punishing their economy with sanctions and tariffs. Israel has already responded, saying that Germany is going back to the World War II route and that the world could be in danger. But it appears that the Germans are fed up with Israel, as 200 of the most powerful German celebrities penned a letter to the new Chancellor Merkel begging him to cancel arms sales to Israel and sanction them into oblivion. And they're even canceling a lot of major trade deals that was made earlier this year between the Germans and Israelis. Also, military deals and pacts are being shredded, and Germany is also saying that the annexation of the West Bank is illegal and that they stand with the Palestinians. Yahoo is saying that Israel does not need Germany, and that if Germany keeps up this aggressive rhetoric towards Israel, that consequences will occur. For the first time in Germany, the youth of Germany no longer support Israel. Very interesting things are to come for the nation.
A threat to our neighboring countries. I told him point blank, no country in China's neighborhood is a match against China in terms of military power. China's military buildup is a matchup against only one country. That is the United States. China will never allow the United States to launch a war against China, conventional or nuclear, without suffering devastating consequences. If you have not watched the Victory Day parade in Beijing on September the 3rd, one of the weapons China demonstrated, we call it 61 because it can contain 60 nuclear warheads plus one hydrogen bomb. Now, in the world of today, let me tell you, which country has hydrogen bomb? China is the only country with hydrogen bomb. And that ICBM can cover every corner of the world in less than 20 minutes and destroy any target in any corner of the world without any possibility of being intercepted. I hope Washington has learned the lesson. If you want to have war, you will get war. If you want to destroy China, you will be destroyed. If you want to impose nuclear war on China, you will be wiped out by nuclear war. This is very serious. China's policy is very clear. China will not fire the first shot.
When you say, like you said in your speech in France, you said things like, we will conquer the world, we will have the flag at the White House. You gotta understand, people get, they get scared of that. They get pushed back from that. I mean, you're saying we're going to take over your country. And maybe you're not saying that, but maybe Quran says it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that. Why? Of course. My Quran said it, and I'm repeating it. Of course, we will take over. Of course, we will take over. But just if we look at the numbers, of course, we will take over. Could you imagine that 44 countries, amongst them the strongest countries on earth, America, 44 countries, they went to a bunch of Muslims with old Kalashnikovs. They're fighting for almost 12 years now. Did they win anything? No, these Muslims are taking over in Afghanistan. Could you imagine that the strongest army on earth, if we say the air, the power on air, the air bases, it's Israel. They have, I don't know what kind of weapons that they have, the most sophisticated weapons. They're fighting against a bunch of Muslims with stones, rocks, thrown at them, and they're still winning every day, or still living every day. So of course that we will win. Can't you ask yourself a question? How does it come that the strongest places of the strongest countries on earth, they can't take over some parts of the world? That's a question to ask.
You brought up Israel. What's your position on Israel?
Yeah, we want to wipe Israel from the map. In 2 words, of course. We hate Israel. We don't recognize Israel and the flag of Israel. Israel can go to hell, like the flag of Israel can go to hell. And with the will of Allah, we will go and we will pray in Jerusalem as an Islamic state with the Sharia implemented. Of course, if Netanyahu wants to be there, he could be there, but I think the best thing for him is to move to America. I think the best friend of Israel is America, so let them move to America.
But when you
go and conquer the adjacent country, what do? We kill them all? No. The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they accept it, leave them. Khalas, they're Muslims, we go. If they refuse, then tell them to pay taxation, jizya. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take where, because you refuse, I give you two good options.
Two good options, you give me two good options. Either convert to Islam, pay ridiculous amounts of money, or we kill you. Yeah, two good options, perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable.
This concludes part 1 of the gigantic war timeline. Please don't miss part 2, which will go over all the players in the gigantic war and what their fate will be. You will not want to miss it. As always, please like, subscribe, and if you feel these videos benefit you, please consider becoming one of our monthly donors. It's as easy as clicking on the QR code. That helps us to keep the videos coming. Thank you for watching, and God bless.